Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my World Cup 2022 updated prediction video, where of course a few months ago I gave you guys an official World Cup prediction video, but of course since then a lot has changed. Obviously we've had a lot of international friendlies, we've had the Nations League, so the form of a lot of teams has changed. And along with that, we've got new teams that have officially qualified for the World Cup. The likes of Australia, Costa Rica and Wales are officially going to go to Qatar at the end of the year. So of course, with a lot of things happening all over the world in terms of the World Cup, I just feel like you guys are due an update. And as I said, form is forever changing, so this probably won't be my last World Cup prediction video. I'll probably do one about a month before the time, a final official World Cup prediction video. But as I said, a lot has changed since my last one, so I just feel like you guys are due an update. You guys seem to have absolutely loved my previous World Cup prediction video. Obviously I got a lot of love from that, obviously a lot of hate as well. I mean, I feel like that's just normal for prediction videos. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you do enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Don't forget World Cup Wednesday, where every single Wednesday, new World Cup content just for you guys. But of course, without wasting any more of your time, let's jump into the predictions. Now, of course, looking at Group A, looking at my original Group A predictions, I had the likes of Netherlands winning the group with Senegal in second, Ecuador third, and of course, Qatar fourth. And to be honest with you guys, I feel like my group stage predictions for Group A is going to stay exactly the same. I mean, the one problem I had when originally predicting this group is the fact that I thought Senegal and Netherlands would be super close in terms of winning the group, where to be honest, the last few months has kind of taught me that I think Netherlands should win this group comfortably. Of course, I still think that they will be first in this group, but I am a lot more confident about that prediction now. Of course, they had an absolutely brilliant Nations League. Now, of course, we cannot forget, I know a lot of people are going to argue that no one really cares about Nations League, or you can't read too much into these international friendlies because obviously teams don't always play their strongest possible squads. Of course, lots of players don't try their absolute hardest because they don't really care about it. They're tired after the season. But at the end of the day, you still have to look at some results. Obviously, Netherlands getting a 4-1 win over Belgium. Of course, looking at the likes of Senegal, I do think that they're obviously a brilliant team. Obviously, as someone who covers a lot of African football national content, I obviously know how brilliant Senegal can be with the likes of Sadio Mane, Koulibaly, obviously Edouard Mendy, and the list goes on about how brilliant the Senegalese team is. But looking at Netherlands, just how brilliant they were during the international break. I mean, they were one of the most convincing teams in the Nations League in terms of their form, and because of that, as I said, I do think that they should 100% win this group. I do think Senegal definitely good enough to possibly cause an upset, possibly win the group, but in the meantime, I do think that they will be in second place. Let's hope that they don't have Mane problems with that. Now, of course, in third and fourth place, as I said, Ecuador and Qatar, I do think will remain in third and fourth place. Obviously, as we know, Ecuador had some brilliant performances as of late. They've pulled out some really brilliant results. It's just compared to the other two nations that I do think that they are slightly weaker, but I do still think that they could have a really excellent tournament. And of course, in fourth place, it is going to be the home nation for the World Cup, obviously Qatar. And as we know, obviously home nations can have brilliant tournaments from time to time. Of course, there's that excitement about it being a World Cup in your home country, but of course, just compared to the other three nations, I just don't see it happening. Now, of course, jumping into my Group B predictions, once again, looking at them, I think it might be very similar to my original predictions. Obviously, looking at my original predictions, I had the likes of England in first place. I did predict Wales to qualify for the World Cup, which they did for the first time in 64 years.
Look around you. Look at this. We created this. This didn't exist before we were here.
Of course, Gareth Bale may be taking a bit of time off of golf to practice his football skills in order to get them that achievement. I did put USA in third place and Iran in fourth place. Now, of course, looking at my predictions this time around, it is not going to be an easy one. Of course, looking at England, one of those teams that have suffered heavily in the Nations League. I mean, England, 0 wins in 4 Nations League games. You've scored 1 goal, which once again, controversial to whether it should be a goal or not. You've conceded 6 goals. England, you're not looking good at the moment, and I think lots of people expect me to put you in second, third, or maybe even fourth place after performances like that. Obviously, looking at the likes of Wales, as I said, this is their first World Cup in like 64 years. People have no idea what to expect from them. And of course, looking at them, they've just sacked the likes of Ryan Giggs as their manager. So once again, how are they going to fare with that? Although he hasn't really been on the sideline for them for quite a while. As we know, the likes of USA, once again, I mean, defensively have looked very good in qualification stage and in CONCACAF games. But of course, looking at them on the attacking wise, are they going to be able to cope versus England and a bunch of the other teams? And of course, looking at Saudi Arabia.
Who?
or not Saudi Arabia, sorry, Iran in this group. Tiny bit of underdogs compared to the other three teams, and as we know, underdogs love to cause an upset. So of course, not an easy group to predict whatsoever, and once again, I'm going to receive a lot of hate for this, but I do still think England probably will end up winning this group. Once again, it could go either which way. Gareth Southgate could go south with a team like this. As I said, absolutely dreadful performances in the Nations League, but of course we've seen them in recent tournaments on the nation stage. When it comes to the Euros, when it comes to World Cups, they have been decent in the last 2 or 3 tournaments. So of course, will they be able to do it again? I do think they've got decent enough players. I mean, they've shown us on regular occasions that they can perform well, and I do think they should still be able to win this group. In terms of last place in this group, I do think it will be Iran. As I said, they are the underdogs of this group. They could cause an upset, but as I said, although they've got a great squad, they obviously played an international friendly versus the likes of Algeria in the international stage, and of course, as we know, they lost 2-1 to Algeria, which although they played their strongest squad, Algeria didn't, and to lose 2-1 versus basically a second team Algeria squad, even though the first team hasn't been playing well in the last few months, once again, you do expect better from them. And if they can't get a result versus a second team Algeria squad, I don't expect much versus the rest, so I do have to put them in last place. Obviously, in terms of second and third, it will be between Wales and USA. Now, of course, am I going to put USA over the likes of Wales? I think it is so extremely possible. As I said, defensively, they've really picked up their boots in recent performances. But of course, looking at the likes of Wales, once again, they've caused some real upsets as of late. There's just a passion behind this Welsh national team. Once again, we know Gareth Bale has been performing out of his boots as of late for them. He has been brilliant. I've heard lots of people say that this Welsh team plays well as a team, but they're not that great individually, which I find absolute nonsense. You just look throughout this team. They've been performing well, so well individually and as a team. I think that they've got everything it takes to make it to the next stage, and that is why I think Wales, in the first time in 64 years, will make it out of the group stage. How brilliant would that be? And of course, that does mean in third place, I'm going to put USA, which once again, it is not an easy decision to make, all the American fans out there. I mean, obviously, looking at them, they just recently won 3-0 versus Morocco and got a 0-0 draw versus Uruguay. 2 very, very impressive results versus 2 very, very strong nations. So of course, not an easy prediction to make whatsoever, but my Group B predictions will remain the exact same as my first one. Now, of course, moving on to Group C, once again, fairly easy in terms of predicting a group winner, and I'm a lot more confident about it this time around, as I do think Argentina will win Group C. Now, of course, the first time I was predicting this video, I was looking at obviously Poland, Mexico, and Argentina in terms of who could win the group, and of course, I thought it could be very, very close, that maybe Argentina could be upset and have a bit of a slip up. But of course, looking at Argentina as of late, they're like 30 whatever games unbeaten at the moment. They won the Finalissima trophy versus Italy, and may I just say, very, very comfortably. I mean, the only thing messy about that game, bar the best player on the pitch, was Italy's defense. I mean, they didn't play well, which compared to the Euro winners, Argentina looked like a very, very dominant team, and I'm expecting big things from them in the World Cup. Of course, looking at Argentina looking so strong, I do think they will win the group. In terms of last place in the group, of course, the only team I didn't mention that I think have a fighting chance to win it, I do think it will be Saudi Arabia, which is a pity because I do think that they are a good team. Obviously, looking at them, it's a very familiar climate as they are a neighboring country to the likes of Qatar, but obviously in their most recent games versus the same teams that are in their group, in their last 8 games versus these 3 oppositions, they haven't gotten a single win. And of course, to turn it around versus these 3 teams in one tournament, I think it is highly unlikely. I do think they will end dead last. And of course, looking at Poland versus Mexico, this is not going to be an easy prediction to make. As we know, Mexico, an absolutely brilliant team. I have made videos talking about why they could do very, very well in this World Cup. As we know, they are notorious for World Cups in terms of doing very, very well. Ochoa being the goalkeeper of the tournament. That's how brilliant he is. I mean, he's like the Mexican Superman, to be honest with you. But of course, looking at them, they do have that round of 16 curse. Looking at the likes of Poland, although they have their shocking moments from time to time, they recently beat the likes of Wales, but lost 6-1 to Belgium. And although Belgium are a top footballing nation, you just cannot lose 6-1 to Belgium and expect me to have that confidence in you. Poland, you've got a brilliant squad. Obviously, I mean, we're kind of waiting for you guys to have your time in the sun. We've always spoken about how you have brilliant individuals, from the best striker in the world, Lewandowski, to Matty Cash and so many others. But once again, I'm still yet to see it. And I do think it could go either way between Mexico and Poland. But Mexico, I think your round of 16 curse will be done, as I don't think you'll even make it this time around. I'm sorry, I do think think Poland will in second place and Mexico in third. Now, of course, jumping into the halfway stage with Group D. Now, of course, this is going to be a very, very interesting group to predict. We've got France, we've got Denmark, we've got Tunisia, and we've got Australia. Of course, Australia, the latest team to qualify for the World Cup, obviously. And of course, I owe them a huge apology, beating the likes of Peru, which, by the way, I had no idea that was going to end up coming. Obviously, I said in my recent prediction video that I thought whoever qualified and played against Peru in the final qualification stage, I thought Peru would win either way. I was dead wrong. Australia, you guys can be so proud of yourselves, and I don't want to underestimate you guys there. But of course, look at Tunisia, who have just picked up silverware, by the way, versus the likes of Japan. Obviously, they also ended up getting a 2-0 win versus Chile. So of course, looking at Tunisia, they are looking very strong. As we know, France, the current World Cup winners, which, by the way, 0 wins in their 4 Nations League games.
Disgusting!
Just like England at the moment, something's gone sour. They're going to have to pick up their socks. And of course, looking at Denmark, I think once again, the world's favorite team in terms of an underdog, they want to do well. This is definitely one of the most interesting World Cup groups. It's going to be very, very hard to predict. Initially, I had France to win it, but I do think Denmark will end up winning this group. As I said, looking at France, as we know, there is the World Cup curse, where of course, the previous World Cup winners always do bad at the next World Cup. I do think France will slack off a tiny bit this time around, but I just don't see them not coming within the top 2. As we know, you still have the likes of Benzema and Kylian Mbappe up front. You've got Hugo Lloris between the posts, and if you don't have him, you've got the Serie A goalkeeper of the year. Of course, looking at the likes of Varane, Upamecano, when you don't play them, you've got Kimpembe, you've got Konate. As we know, this French team is absolutely loaded. You've got that Pogba-Conte midfield partnership in the midfield. As you know, this French team, I've got no idea why they flopped so bad in the Nations League. Maybe they just weren't focusing on it, but I do think that they should still do well enough, and I do think they'll snatch that second place. And of course, as I said, between Tunisia and Australia, it's not going to be an easy one, but due to Tunisia's recent success, obviously winning silverware, obviously their recent performances, I do think Tunisia, the African nation, will snatch up that third place. And unfortunately, Australia, I hate to do it again. I hope that maybe I'm wrong and you guys end up surprising me at this tournament, but I do think Australia will unfortunately get that 4th place. Obviously, moving on to the second half of my predictions, we've got Group E, and once again, a very, very tricky nation to predict, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to upset a lot of people in this prediction. We've got Spain, we've got Germany, we've got Japan, and we've got Costa Rica. Obviously, Costa Rica beating New Zealand to get here, and one of my major worries is the fact that Costa Rica did not look that convincing versus New Zealand, to be honest with you. There were multiple occasions where I thought New Zealand could have qualified over them. In that game, New Zealand almost were the better team from some times in that game. Obviously, looking at both Germany and Spain, one of their main problems is maybe the fact that they don't have a proper striker up front. So of course, versus the likes of Keylor Navas, maybe Costa Rica could pick up a draw here or there. Let's not forget the fact that they won their group in the 2014 World Cup, and it was one of the strongest groups in that World Cup. So as we know, Costa Rica could be a nation that could upset, but of course, looking at them, I just feel like compared to the other 3 nations, what we've seen in recent World Cups, I do think unfortunately they will end in 4th place. And of course, looking at Spain, Germany, and Japan, these are 3 very, very interesting and very, very strong nations to look at. Obviously, as I said, the likes of Japan have recently lost 3-0 to the likes of Tunisia, obviously in a cup final, and of course, that doesn't look promising. But of course, looking at Japan overall, as we know, they can cause some real upsets on the world stage. They were brilliant and almost knocked out the likes of Belgium in the 2018 World Cup. And although they recently just lost 3-0 to Tunisia, they beat the likes of Ghana 4-1. Looking at Japan, I do not think it's a team to underestimate, and I feel like they could cause a real upset in this group. Once again, I'm going to get a lot of hate from a nation here, and the nation I'm going to get hate from, it's going to be Spain.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Yes, that's right, the nation who I originally predicted to win this group, I think will end 3rd place. Yes, I know, once again, I'm going to get a lot of hate. I know they've struggled in the Nations League due to the fact that they are missing their best defenders due to injuries. Defenders obviously like Laporte and so many others, but at the end of the day, there's just something about the Spanish national team that I feel like they could get upset by a team like Japan. And of course, looking at the group winners, I obviously think it will be Germany. Obviously, originally I predicted them to end 2nd place in this group, but looking at them at the moment, recently lost 1-5-2 versus Italy. As we know, although they don't necessarily have a clinical striker up front, obviously Timo Werner recently scored 2 goals versus Italy, so that kind of makes my point sound redundant.
and there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
But of course, as a team, they play super, super well together. As Thomas Müller has always said, I mean, this German national team, it doesn't necessarily have 1 or 2 stars, but they play well as a team, and that's why they'll do well. They've got such a mixture of brilliant youth in their squad, along with a lot of experience, and I think that could be so, so crucial to them winning this group. Whether they'll make it super far in this competition, I have no idea, but I do think they'll win the group with Japan in second, Spain maybe in third, I'm sorry Spain, and of course Costa Rica in fourth place. As I said, the brilliant youth coming through the Spanish system at the moment.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
I could be proven wrong. Let's hope and see. Once again, football is wildly unpredictable and anything could happen. Moving on to Group F, a nation that I recently just mentioned with the likes of Belgium, we've got Croatia, we've got Morocco, and we've got Canada. Once again, incredibly difficult group to predict. Now, of course, looking at all of these nations, who's going to end up winning this group overall? Of course, Belgium heading into this would be the strong favorites, but of course, them kind of exiting a golden generation, recently losing 6-1 to Netherlands, or 4-1 to Netherlands, but also got a 6-1 win versus Poland. I just feel like Belgium are wildly unpredictable. I mean, they could do super well, or they could bomb out hardcore. Once again, could go absolutely either way, but I do still think Belgium will end up winning the group. I mean, you just look at the Champions League player of the final with the likes of Thibaut Courtois between the posts. Once again, brilliant performance from him. Kevin De Bruyne, the best midfielder in the world this season. As we know, Romelu Lukaku, horrible for Chelsea this season, but when he puts on the Belgium national team jersey, he's been brilliant. And of course, linked to the likes of Inter Milan, once again, if he goes there and picks up form, I don't see why they couldn't do well. So at the end of the day, I do think Belgium will remain at the top of this table. Now, of course, looking at who else will qualify for with them, I mean, look at the likes of Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. This isn't going to be an easy one. I believe this is the first World Cup in like 36 years or something like that Canada have qualified for. Of course, they will really want to make a name for themselves. But one thing that I seriously worry about at the moment is, although they topped all CONCACAF nations in terms of qualifying for the World Cup, we've yet to see them for quite a while face the likes of European opponents. They've of course kind of stayed in their pool in terms of the American teams, and of course we don't really know how they're going to fare against European teams. So of course, versus the likes of Croatia, versus Belgium, or even versus an African giant like Morocco, it could go absolutely either way. And because of my worry with the Canadian national team, I do think I might put them in fourth place. Once again, could go either way. Of course, in terms of second place or in terms of third place, I am going to put Morocco, once again, an African nation. Of course, as someone who lives in Africa, in South Africa, I'd absolutely love all African nations to do well. But of course, we can't forget the fact that Morocco did lose 3-0 to USA, who are even ranked below Canada at the moment in terms of the Americas. So once again, I mean, it's even risky for me to put Morocco above Canada at the moment. But as I said, there's something about this Moroccan national team that I really like. I think they've got a lot of potential to them. Obviously, as we know, they've got brilliant players absolutely everywhere in the pitch. Obviously, Saiss has just moved to the likes of Besiktas in the Turkish league. I do believe that he will end up being missed at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Of course, they've got a brand new centre-back in the Premier League, Aguard, or however you pronounce it, at West Ham United. Obviously, one of my major worries for Morocco, though, is the fact that I feel like, although they've got some good strikers, like a Nesri for Sevilla, I feel like they're really missing someone who's clinical up front for the Moroccan national team. I feel like it would be super crucial if they got the likes of Ziyech back in the national team. But in order to do that, I do feel like they have to sack their current manager. Don't really see it happening before the World Cup, to be honest with you, so they might struggle attacking wise, and that's why I'm going to put them in third place. And of course, second place, almost by default, I'm going to put Croatia, who I didn't put in the top 2 in my original predictions, but looking at them at the moment, bar the fact that they did lose 3-0 to Austria in the Nations League, they of course got points versus Denmark and France. That's not bad by any means. As we know, Croatia, a top footballing nation, they've got experience, they've got youth. Obviously, in my previous video, I spoke about the fact that it is an aging squad, but they've actually brought in a lot of youth through the Nations League, a lot of young talent. They've been performing well with the young talent, and I mean, if they're doing well in the Nations League, I can definitely see them converting it to World Cup success. Let's see how they go. And I mean, in terms of aging players, I mean, you look at the likes of Luka Modric, who was a major part of Real Madrid winning the Champions League. I mean, if he's an aging player, not bad whatsoever. Now, of course, heading into what I believe is our second last World Cup group, which, don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. I would, of course, really appreciate it. Which, by the way, guys, I got this Kenyan football jersey. Obviously, I am a huge fan of it. And I wanted to ask you guys in the comment section down below, what is the favorite football jersey that you own? What is your favorite football jersey? Or what is the most random football jersey that you own? Yeah, I'm just asking out of interest. But of course, jumping into our second last group, we've got Brazil, Serbia, Cameroon and Switzerland. Now, of course, I still believe that Brazil should win this one comfortably. I mean, it's the only nation in my entire list that I haven't even made a single note about, because you don't need to write notes about Brazil. We know how absolutely brilliant they are. Obviously, in terms of individuals, I mean, you just look at their goalkeepers. The two goalkeepers to battle it out for the Premier League Golden Glove this year were both Brazilian, with Edison and Alisson with, 19 clean sheets each. As we know, they've got brilliant players everywhere in the pitch. From attack to defense, they've got at least 5 World Cup or world-class players per every single position. I mean, you just think of the wingers and attackers up front. From Vinicius Jr. to Neymar Jr., obviously you've got the likes of Richarlison, you've got Gabriel Jesus, you've got Anthony, the list goes on, Rafinha. I mean, this Brazilian national team is something special, and just looking at them ahead of the World Cup, they might be the one team that I genuinely think might have an easy run this World Cup. I know that's controversial to say, but they just look so strong, and there's no doubt in my mind that they'll win this group. Of course, look at the other 3 nations. I still do believe that Serbia will retain that second place spot. Obviously, looking at them in the Nations League, they've had a really decent run, and they've gotten points versus some very, very top nations. Obviously, the likes of Vlahovic, Mitrovic, and Dusan Tadic, that trio, they'll be up front for Serbia at the World Cup, as we know how brilliant they've been for club level this season. Obviously, when it comes to playing for their nation, Serbia, they've done well as well. You've obviously got Milinkovic, Savic, and so many other stars, and I don't think Serbia will have a problem qualifying for the next stage of the World Cup. Now, of course, looking at Cameroon and Switzerland, I mean, between these two teams, it doesn't really matter who tops who, because neither of them will advance to the next stage. But of course, looking at my original predictions, I did put the likes of Switzerland in third, with Cameroon in fourth, but I do think I am going to end up swapping that around. Looking at Switzerland, I've not been impressed with them in the Nations League. I feel like they've been very sloppy. Attacking wise, I just feel like something is seriously missing for them at the moment. Obviously, defensively, they have their moments from time to time, but they've definitely slipped up. And looking at Cameroon, the way they've played in recent African Cup of Nations, the way they've played in their recent international games, I mean, I do think that they are missing a player like Joel Matip. If he returned to this Cameroon team, I could see myself putting them in second place in this group, but I don't see that happening. So in the meantime, Cameroon, I think you'll be in third, and Switzerland, I know it's weird, but I'm going to put you guys fourth. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to our final group for the World Cup predictions for my updated video, and we have Group H with Portugal, Uruguay, Ghana, and the Korean Republic, also known as South Korea. And what a group this is once again. Now, of course, I got a lot of hate from this video, or from this group last time I predicted it. Obviously, as you guys know, I cover a lot of Ghanaian football content, and I did not put them within the top 2 last time. And of course, I got a lot of hate from that. But of course, last time we spoke about it, or since last time we spoke about it, a lot has happened for Ghana. As we know, they've picked up some big results, and they've picked up a lot of big players who could be joining them for the World Cup. Players like Tariq Lamptey, the likes of Hudson-Odoi, Ketia, and so many others could be joining Ghana for the World Cup at the end of the year. And with brilliant young talent like that, they could surprise a lot of people. But of course, looking at these groups as it stands, of course, looking at who I'm going to put in last place, it is not going to be easy, but I am once again going to have to put South Korea, the Korea Republic. Obviously, as we know, Heung-min Son was absolutely brilliant for Tottenham Hotspur this season. The top goal scorer in the Premier League without a single penalty. Of course, the fact that he missed out on the team of the season, it's an absolute crime. I don't know how it happened. But once again, people are going to feel like sad for Heung-min Son because he has missed out once again, as I do think Korea will end up in 4th place. Yes, I know that they recently beat the likes of Egypt, the AFCON finalists, 4-1 in an international friendly. Once again, it is a friendly, so we don't know how much players actually try for it, whether they really care about it. But at the end of the day, looking at Korea, although I do think it is a brilliant team, compared to the other 3, I just think it will be so tough. Looking at 3rd place, once again, Uruguay, Portugal, and Ghana. Am I going to get hate again? Am I going to get hate for saying this? Probably so, but I do think once again, I have to put Ghana. I'm so sorry, Black Stars of Ghana. Once again, I'm not saying your team is bad whatsoever. It is just an incredibly tricky group. Don't worry, if I'm wrong, I'll be happy if I'm wrong. I want African nations to do well. I would absolutely love for Ghana to do well at the World Cup. But looking at you guys versus Uruguay and Portugal, once again, I just expect a lot more from these teams. I heard lots of people say in my previous video, oh yeah, but don't forget in 2010 this happened, or in 2012, or whenever this happened. Guys, that was 10 years ago. Things change in 10 years. Don't forget, 5-6 years ago, Sunderland was a Premier League team. Things change over the years. You cannot look 10 years ago and expect things to be the exact same now. Things change. But of course, looking at the likes of Ghana, I do think you guys have a brilliant squad. From goalkeeper to attack, there's absolutely nothing I can fault at this point in time for Ghana. Although they didn't do well at the African Cup of Nations, I do currently think that they have a super strong team. But as I said, versus Uruguay and Portugal, as things currently stand, I do expect them to make it through. Now, of course, looking at Uruguay versus Portugal, as we know, looking at these two nations, I do feel like going into this Portugal are the favorites, but I do think, once again, I'm going to put them in second place. I do think they've got an absolutely brilliant squad, but once again, we've seen them slip up from time to time. I guess it all depends whether Portugal put on revenge mode. As we know, when they end up losing a game or get a bad result, like that 1-1 draw versus Spain, they kind of switch on and then get like a 4-1 win versus Switzerland. As we know, when Portugal want to turn on, they've got some brilliant players and they can be so lethal, and they maybe could have a chance of winning the World Cup. Overall, it all depends how they play on the day. As we know, they almost didn't qualify for the World Cup, so if Portugal want to do well, they have to put their best foot forward. I mean, they have to put forward all their best feet at this stage. And of course, that does mean I do think Uruguay will end up winning this group. As we know, Uruguay have an absolutely brilliant team. As we know, Edinson Cavani, when he plays for them, brilliant. Luis Suarez, brilliant. Obviously, as we know, Darwin Nunez, the brand new Liverpool striker. Once again, I mean, Uruguay definitely don't have a problem striker-wise. You've obviously got Valverde, obviously in the midfield. You've got Araujo or whatever, the Barcelona centre-back. I mean, you've got brilliant players absolutely everywhere, and I'm expecting big things. Benteke and so many others for Uruguay. I just feel like looking at this Uruguay national team at this point in time, something's so good about them. They've gotten 5 clean sheets in their last 5 games, and they've scored 11 goals. Uruguay, I'm expecting big things, and I'm expecting you to beat Portugal to winning this group. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my updated World Cup prediction video. Once again, as I said, probably not my last World Cup prediction video. I'll probably do a final one about a month or 2 weeks before the final tournament. Once again, form is forever changing, so of course, I mean, I kind of have to update my prediction videos. I just wanted you guys to know how I feel at this exact stage in time. Once again, if you guys have any disagreements with any of my predictions, put them in the comment section down below. And don't forget, once again, if I put your team in 3rd or 4th place and not to advance to the next stage, remember, it's nothing personal. It is just my opinion. You shouldn't care too much about it. And of course, once again, someone has to be 3rd, someone has to be 4th. And these decisions are never easy. Guys, I hope you did end up enjoying this video. This has been Finn, FYNN. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Until next time, cheers.